In this video, you will meet the richest and most powerful families in the world. These are who are above the most powerful companies, as well as the richest men in the world are not individuals, but groups of families. The money that owns each of these families separately does not compare. Even adding the fortune of the 15 richest men in the world, this group is the elite of the world economy, is said to virtually control the banking system around the world as they make major decisions in entire economies countries and are the ones who dictate the world order. Group is the elite of the world economy. It is said that practically controls the banking system around the world as they make the most important decisions in economies of entire countries and are those who dictate the world order. Discover the genesis of these powerful families and know the history of how they got so much economic power that has led them to be a group of global elite. Rothschild family, the most powerful family in the world. The Rothschilds of German Jewish origin has its genesis with Mr. Maya the Bossio Amster, born in the Jewish ghetto of Frankfurt in Germany in a family of merchants who also had money exchange houses. For the year 1769, Mr. May was already the heir of the family and a respected banker. The family and a respected banker known as a court Jew, that is a lender directly to the royalty of the time. The Rothschild Empire would begin in the early 19th century when Mayer placed his 5 sons in charge of the most important centers in Europe, which is why the family coat of arms bears the 5 arrows of the family's coat of arms. The family's coat of arms bears the 5 arrows symbolizing the 5 branches of their dynasty. By 1818, the Rose children were already a family of respected bankers and at that time controlled much of the European economy. At the same time, a disciplined young man, an apprentice accountant in New York, was emerging who would become the richest man in the world. The name of this young entrepreneur and visionary was John Davison Rockefeller. After 1818, and with the passing of the centuries, the fortune of the Rothschild family and its heirs became the most powerful family in the world. Rockefeller family. The Rockefeller family is considered one of the most powerful families in the world and has its place only below the Rothschild family. The origin of this successful family arises with Mr. John Davison Rockefeller in the 19th century. Unlike May Rothschild, he was not born in a cradle of silver, but on the contrary, he was a poor child who lived through many deprivations. His father was a train robber and was known as a thug. Due to these deprivations, Little John Rockefeller developed sales tactics as a child, selling golden stones that he painted himself and passed them off as precious stones when he was a young man. When he finished his meager high school studies, he moved to the United States. John Rockefeller moved to the city of Cleveland and started working as an assistant accountant in a small office. John Rockefeller showed great discipline from a young age, working from 6:30 a.m. and leaving after 10 p.m. He never complained about the hours. He never visited bars. He saved his capital to later invest it in the stock market. He ventured into the refinery industry in 1862, and at only 23 years old, he founded his first refinery. After years of savings and being an excellent administrator, he bought the other refineries and his competition, founding Standard Oil. He was known as the man who monopolized the oil industry in the USA. Due to his monopoly practices, he was put on trial by the state, and they asked him to sell a large part of his company's assets to the state. Shortly after he sold part of his shares came the crisis of the 1920s, where he himself would buy back the shares that the state made him sell, but at a very cheap price, and would see his fortune increase more than 10 times. This event led him to make a gigantic financial leap. He is known as the man who has created the largest fortune in the oil industry in the United States, and is known as the man who has created the largest fortune in the world. Lonely, born poor, and without a rich family backing, inherited his fortune. Morgan family. The Morgans are a family of wealthy bankers. This powerful family has its foundation with the famous banker of the early 19th century, John Pierpont Morgan, better known as J.P. Morgan. This character, along with other great men, were the cause of turning the USA from a nation of farmers and traders in an economic superpower. J.P. Morgan was the heir to the fortune and business of his father. He managed the banking business from a young age, in addition to diversifying the fortune inherited in the railroad industry to zero. Economic superpower J.P. Morgan was the heir to his father's fortune and business. He managed the banking business from a young age and diversified his inherited fortune in the railroad industry to zero and merged electric companies. J.P. Morgan is recognized as one of the pillars of the American economy by straightening out entire industries in his country's economy and being the leader in bringing together the main businessmen to avoid financial crises. In 1871, J.P. Morgan partnered with Anthony Drexel to form his own financial firm, which later became the first of its kind in the United States. His own financial firm that would later become the Morgan Company, which would become one of the largest banks in the world. This is the predecessor of the powerful J.P. Morgan Chase. His influence and financial power was such that it was thought that Morgan manipulated the financial market along with other bankers, and because of Morgan and his interventions in the U.S. economy, the state was forced to create a central bank known as the U.S. Federal Network. J.P. Morgan died in 1913 at the age of 76 in the same year. Of his death, the U.S. founded the central bank. Morgan had 5 children who became the heirs to his empire. Now the Morgan fortune and power is immense, and their place is calculated in the number 3 position of the most powerful families in the world. Family forms. The beginning of this powerful family has its origin with its founder Henry Ford, a poor boy, an orphan who grew up on a farm and created an empire based on hard work starting from scratch. This boy showed a born talent to disassemble and reassemble a pocket watch with all its small parts and make it work perfectly. When he was only 7 years old, Henry Ford lost his mother as a child, and soon after he moved to the city of Detroit to start working as a laborer in a ship factory. After this job, he continued his career as a mechanic in other companies, passing through the General Electric. After a successful career as a mechanic, he left his job to design his own automobile. He founded the Troy Automobile Company, but when he did not get enough investors, he abandoned the automobile construction and had his first big failure as an entrepreneur, later seeking to attract the attention of other investors. His strategy works, and he obtains income from investors to found the Ford Motor Company. His great idea was to make the automobile for the masses and the working class that for the time was considered an exclusive and luxury transport. He achieved this by mass-producing automobiles in mobile assembly lines, which brought a low-cost production, which took him to the beginning of his career. This brought him enormous income, which catapulted him from a failed entrepreneur to one of the richest men in the world. Later, he bought all the shares of his company from its shareholders and became the sole owner of the Ford Motor Company. DuPont family. The descendants of Pierre Samuel DuPont, a French economist and businessman, came to the United States fleeing the French Revolution. In the 18th century, he was a pioneer in the gunpowder industry in the middle of the 19th century. In the early 20th century, Pierre Samuel's grandsons managed DuPont Industries, investing in sectors such as the chemical and automotive industries, as well as financing for armaments manufacturing during the First and Second World Offensives. Today, the DuPont Company's sectors of interest are multiple, such as engineering, integrated systems, electronics, security, construction, lubricants, adhesives, energy, oil, gas distribution, water purification, etc. The leaders of these families, among others, are directly linked to the administration and management of the banking system that controls the central banks of the major economies. Many say about these families as conspiracy theories that dictate the world order and control major industries, such as the food industry, the medical industry, and the energy industry, that are the creators of financial crises in entire countries, causing epidemics and diseases, in addition to controlling the production and distribution of goods and services. Leave us your comment. Tell us what you think about the video. Do you believe that these families are the ones who really rule the world, or do you think that all this is just intrigues and conspiracies about these families? Do not forget to leave us your comment and subscribe to the channel for more videos of this style.